Hello and welcome to an episode of Roshamjoe Paints, the second overall full-length episode on my channel. My name is Joe, and today I'm going to be showing you the process that I took to paint, build and paint, that is, the Illuminor Szeras model from the Necron lineup. A little bit of full disclosure up front, I did not expect my second video to be over an hour long. However, the model is somewhat difficult to build and, takes a lot of paint. So, while I'm not the best painter out there, this is just how, the processes that I took, and I'm pretty happy with the overall look. I'll show you what the model looks like up front so that you can decide whether or not you want to invest the entire hour into it. And, if it looks like a good thing, then, come along for the ride and hopefully enjoy it. So here we have Illuminor Szeras, the new model like I was talking about, and he is full of just a ton of detail here. The back shows that off a little bit better when I don't have the lights completely in the wrong spot, but a lot of detail on this model. Should be a lot of fun to paint. Normally I am not one for the type of like extra models on the base, because it just would seem weird if I'm going to field this guy against a bunch of let's say orcs or against the Tyranid, and here's just some random dude who is not part of either model or either army being destroyed. But as far as a tiny little diorama goes, this is a complete package. So from what I've heard, it's difficult to put together, but I'm going to open this up, I'm going to show you the sprue, and then probably cut some pieces off and start tackling that. So single sprue, which is nice. I kind of expected as well, since it's still only a single model and it's not an extremely large model. It does get quite a large base. I think that's I can't remember what the size on that is. I think it's 100 millimeter. I'll check and I'll probably put a note in there. The staff itself is amazing, because this is the staff here, and you can see it's actually it itself is larger than like an entire model, which is pretty cool. But that just means it's a lot more to paint, which is, fine by me. The lot of tiny little pieces and a lot of tiny joints. So it is going to be, I think, a difficult task to put together. I'm still going to try to paint it in sub-assemblies where I can, but I will show you, I'll put together all the sub-assemblies and then I'll show you which ones I think I can do. So that was an experience. The model itself is very cool looking. I still really like this model. However, putting this together, I gotta say it's probably the most complicated model I've actually done so far. Not because of a lot of the base back here is actually extremely simple, fit really well together. The anchor points that are inside of here, very good again. But then you get over to this piece right here, and I think because there's this one large back piece that is a contact for the base, and then two more separate contact points for the base, as well as this staff which has to contact the gentleman being interrogated, I'll say, down here. And then this itself then is going to connect back up to pieces which I didn't glue on yet, because I'm going to try and paint them separately. So, there's a hose attachment here. There's a portion, there's just a tiny arm that comes out of here and attaches to part of the biomass. There's a whole separate arm that comes out here, and this attaches to it again, and that attaches again. Like, it's just complicated, and it's going to be difficult, but it's going to be a fun challenge. So I had said I prefer to paint in sub-assemblies, but this model is probably also one of the most delicate models I've also painted. So I wanted to make sure I had a good base for all the work that's going to be done. This portion here I had to modify slightly, and by modify I mean I just kind of glued together, and I'm hoping for the best. If you look at the box portion, let me show the rocks real quick. You can see that on the box, the model itself has this part of the spear is separate from the body, and then it's more of just a beam that is hitting him and dissolving whatever is going on there. In my version, because of how I built it, because I was probably 3 hours of frustration here, I ended up having it stabbing into him, which now that I'm looking at it, the more I look at it, the more I actually kind of like it, because it's as if he had stabbed him, is pinning him down, and is then shooting whatever he needs to shoot. This piece right here is actually part of the staff, and is supposed to be glued further in. So this whole area in here, just this whole spot of biomass, luckily is not supposed to be very clean, because it did not go together perfectly well for me. So nevertheless, I will now spray prime in Chaos Black, and once that is done, I will start putting on coats of leadbelcher, Caliban Green, Abaddon Black, etc., etc., etc. But first steps first, let's get this primed up and ready to go. Primer down, it's time to now paint the base coat of leadbelcher on pretty much the whole model. I am going to be skipping portions of the armor and obviously most of the portion over here. And then the staff is only going to get highlights of leadbelcher, because only some of it's going to be silvered. But to start, I will be doing a lot of the legs, torso, chest, arms, and head, and spine piece back here. So we'll paint this just standard brush, thin down your paint, leadbelcher, etc., etc. Just your average application of leadbelcher. Now I say average, but normally with Necrons, I actually do I will do a dry brush on my Necrons, simply because it's faster for me, and it still looks pretty good. However, I am going to be doing probably a couple different coats of shades on different portions depending on what part of the body I'm painting, and also just this model, it scares me. Not that I'm afraid of it's going to come alive or anything like that, but the idea that I'm going to be dry brushing something and then, push a little bit too hard and knock a piece off. So I want to make sure that I make it through this whole thing without taking it back apart. So I will do my best to hit all the areas I want to hit and show you what those are. Leadbelcher complete. Let me go ahead and start on the Caliban Green. Caliban Green is going to be added to the weapon portions right here where I already started. All of the hoses, some of the armors, and things like that. There's a piece right here which is slightly raised, so I'm going to paint the top half of just the front legs. Have this where it has just a slight separation between the top and the bottom. And if you look at the Games Workshop page, they actually have this painted in like a really dark, like a nice dark color. So I'm going to end up putting this into Caliban Green, and then I'm going to shade over it and darken it up when I do the rest of the shades. Whereas like stuff like the weapon up here, you can see it's already drying off and it's darkening down. I just do moot green directly over that. I don't bother doing any shades on the weapon piece. Make sure you get the orb, which is back here, which is back here inside of the back piece. And then there's also, I believe, some portions of the hand that need to be pour painted as well. I think I did those already. I will grab that. So like I'm doing the bulkier, like you have his arm, it's like almost his arm is inside of a glove. So doing that piece, and then there's another orb that needs to be painted right there. So do all these pieces in Caliban Green, and then we will move on to the next one. So after approximately 4,694 coats of Caliban Green, we are now at a point where I'm happy with the coverage, and I'm moving on to Abaddon Black. I need to coat these hoses right here, which I originally thought were going to be metal, but turns out that no, they're more of a plastic, so I'm going to make them nice and black. The portions of the staff here, which are the grips in black, as well as the decorations here. I'm going to make them black for now. I may end up going back and changing them to a gold later on, but we'll see how the rest of the staff comes out. For now, it's going to be black. Also, the icon in the center here is going to be painted black, and then I will be going over the actual raised portion of the icon in the Caliban green, just as a base coat, before putting the warpstone glow and moot green and all that stuff on. So final thing to paint black also is going to be these boots, and you might be wondering, well, the boots are already black. They were made for walking, but unfortunately he's getting walked all over himself. But the black that the boots are right now is more like the Chaos Black primer spray, and if I have to touch it up later, it will have a slightly different look to it, and then when I touch it up, it's going to then look a little bit different again. And realistically, I'm basically done with them already in the time that it took to explain why I would paint them. So that's why I'm painting them, because it's very, very simple, very quick, and less of a headache later on. So far, this model has been, again, kind of fun to paint. I do enjoy a lot of it, but this in here is driving me nuts, being able to get in and paint the things that I want to get in. In fact, I just saw a little bit more. Let me tilt it forward here so you can see it. A little bit of the Caliban green that I need to go in there and paint. And again, you're hardly going to look at it, hardly going to notice it, especially if I hold the model this way. But I know it's there. So anyways, I'm going to go finish up the quick coat of Abaddon Black on all the parts that need it. Maybe touch up with a little bit of the green, and then we will go to the next. So I had missed some pieces on the base over here by his back legs that needed to be covered in leadbelcher as well. Went back and did that. That's like a metal of the, looks like basically like a giant steel girders or something along those lines, some rebar, and actually a couple little tiny little scarabs. So with that, I now have the entirety of what needs to be covered in Nuln Oil complete. So I'm going to go ahead and do a shade on the legs, as well as the joints, and obviously the pieces that I just ended up painting on the base here. I'm also going to end up doing this top shoulder piece, as well as the inside here that is Caliban green, and I'm going to leave the bottom for now in just Caliban green. Just so maybe have a couple of different colors of green on the model, just to add a little more, variations. So let me finish doing all of this shade, and there will be a lot of it. You know what? I am going to just paint this in. There we go. Decisions made right there. Now I can either layer up later if I want to, going back, and if it ends up being too dark, I can always go and add a thin layer of Caliban green and go from there, or I can just start highlighting it. We'll see. When it's dry, I'll have a better idea of whether I like it or not, but either way, I wanted a shade in these recesses. You can use a very thin brush and just trace the lines. That's what I do with most of my my Space Marines, but doing it this way and building up the layer also works. So I will do all of these Nuln Oil coats and let you know when I'm done. Another thing here, actually, before I switch off the video and continue to paint, is the legs up front here, and maybe the ones in the back, just these portions here. I might do a second coat, or I might do Agar's Earth shade, depending on what the coat looks like when it's done. I'll decide, but it's up to you how dark you want them to look. I want them to be slightly different. I know that the box art has the whole body is essentially like gold, which I don't think I'm going to do, because I wanted more of a Sautekh look, if I'm pronouncing that right. But yeah, I don't know. It matches the rest of my stuff, so I'm going with that, and I think I'll like the look when it's done. You'll see. You may like it, you may not, but the fun part is there are so many variations on all of these models. So that rant over. Let me get this painted before it all dries in one spot. Hopefully you can hear me over the leaf blower that's going across the street, but with the Nuln Oil now dry, I am now going to add some more base colors, which are going to get maybe some Agrax Earth shade applied to them. So first one up is Retributor Armor, and this is going to go on the, I'm going to call this like a collar, but up here and all the way up to the very top. So that to add a little bit of, difference between just the black, or not the black, the silver and the green. I'm also, there's a couple spots that you can find on the legs, just on the front here, and I might have to just wait until later to do these properly, but there's a symbol on each of the legs, and I think that's mostly it. It's just going to be a couple spots. Oh, how about the one major piece? This entire tabard loincloth type piece is going to get this color. So that will get it. And then the final piece is, I'll move this. Final piece I already finished painting is the, I did his, like the little hand glove finger that's going to be touching the biomass later. So I did that in that gold as well. So I will finish these and be right back. So I ended up doing a little bit extra. As I was painting it, I decided to add the gold to the chin here and the sides of his head, as well as the standing portions of the spine. And, just thought that would be a nice feature, because with just the center here in gold, it kind of, I don't know, just, I wanted to add a little bit more. Anyways, now that that is done, I'm going to go on to my next base coat. This is going to be for the actual basic material down here. This is Adeptus Mechanicus, I think, and I'm going to be painting all of the stone, all the stone down here, this gray color, to then get the Agrax Earth shade as well later. So the base itself, you don't need to paint. You can if you'd like, but I'm going to be covering up. It just depends on how you base your miniatures. I'm going to be covering it up with Astro Granite later, which is a pretty thick texture paint. So I'm not going to bother painting that. But if you were going with something like what is called Grelin Badlands or whatever it's called, the crack paints, you're going to see some of this black through it. So you either want to put, one, I like that look, but if you want to put a little bit of black down to have the black show through, brown, or if you're doing, something like something a little more interesting, you can actually put green down on the base, and then once that's, you got a solid coat of green, paint the crackle paint over it, and then when it cracks up, you'll see little lines of green through it. So it's a little effect. But mine are, my Necrons are done in a very simple way, which is just Astro Granite with a little bit of Drybrushing on top. So I will be painting this in a similar shade, and then like I said, we'll do the shade over the top. Just make sure you don't hit any of the portions you've already painted, because now that they're painted and they have the shade over them, it gets harder to fix. So just be really careful when you're getting into all the areas here. Not as required over here, because I haven't painted this guy yet. So if I accidentally end up going over, I'm not that concerned. So let me finish that, and we will move on to probably, I don't know if I have any other base coats as far as the Agrax Earth shade is concerned. So at least not at this point. I am probably going to do a little bit here, but we'll worry about that later. For now, just do the base. Now time for some Agrax Earth shade. This is going to go over all of the stones that we just painted on the base here. Might do one, maybe two coats. May even throw some Nuln Oil in there. This is kind of just personal preference. It's to dirty it up so it doesn't look like a brand new model toy on the ground, which would just look weird. Second place that I'm going to use the Agrax Earth shade is, sometimes you can use, what do you call it, Reikland Flesh Shade on this, but I want it to be a darker gold. I don't want it to be like that, what do you call it, Stormcast Eternal. They do that, so I want it to be a little bit darker here. Just make sure it doesn't pool like crazy, because you don't want it to be you know, you don't want a giant color of just brown. So come back here every once in a while and make sure that it's pooling in the proper spots. If you felt like it, you can do what I just did right here, which is turn the model upside down so that the shade pools at the very top, and you can leave it here for a little while and then come back. But that way you see as the shade dries, it dries closer to where the actual shade, like an actual shadow would be cast. So there's that. And then of course we want to hit just barely here because there's not a whole lot, but we just want to dull it down. And side of the head, as well as, careful, as well as this side. And we are going to then do each one of these fins as well, just again to knock that overall gold color down slightly. So we're going to come back and do some highlighting, but I'm not going to highlight it back up to an intense gold. But you can see, you know, just adding a little bit of depth and a little bit of, you know, knocking that overall shine down. And, you know, at least in my eyes, it looks a lot better that way. So I will continue on with the rest of the parts that are needed, which actually there's one more that I want to tell you about, and that is I'm going to go over the legs here again because I wanted the legs to be a little bit darker and a slightly different metallic than this portion of the leg. Like, what would you call, like, the foot or whatever? I want this to be a different color than the actual leg piece. And I want to go over the green, the Caliban green of the front legs, as well as, I mean, it's going to be the whole piece. Look at this whole section here, and really, really darken up this this green color. I don't know why. I just kind of want to. This is what painting is all about. You can use this as a reference as to how something would look, but overall, like, I've painted most of my stuff in the suggested ways with just slight variations. But as you get to, I'm hoping, that is, to branch out and start painting my own color schemes and, you know, coloring my you know, how I want them to look. So this is actually one of the first models. No, not the first. Anyways, this is one of the only models that I'm finally doing that on. Rambling, I know, but that's what you get when you come here. But so the box art is actually much different than how I'm painting it. The sections may be similar in how they're done, but the paints that they're suggesting I use and exactly where to put them, I'm doing a little bit differently here. So I've also seen some completed models already that are airbrushed and look amazing, but you know, I'm here to do it my way. So let me continue rambling to myself. You guys won't have to suffer through it, but I will come back once all the shade is applied and show you what it looks like. With the base coat of Cabalite Green done, including this little eye up here as well, I am now going to apply Coelia Green shade onto all of the gems. And with this, I will be looking to first do an entire coat over the whole gem, make sure it darkens it down. But then when I go for the second coat, I'm going to start in the center, but then push towards the bottoms and push towards the top so that the gem itself looks brighter in kind of like the center where that line is. And then we'll go and highlight that line later, but that's what we'll start with at least. So I'll do that on the gems, and then same kind of an idea for this piece. Once we'll do, you know, an all over and get it in all the cracks and crevices. But then in the center here, I'm going to leave this lighter, and I'm going to actually shade more, probably give a second or third coat around the outside here to darken the outside down. And then again, finishing up with, you know, highlighting later on. So that said, I will now finish my rambling and then finish my my shading. All right, back in a second. A few more base coats to go until we get to the fun part of highlighting. So next we're going to do the majority of this guy down here in Xandri dust. Just his cloak, pants, clothes, everything. Obviously not the portions we've painted in silver or gold so far. And then there are some scrolls he's got that we're gonna touch up later. And then his boots, which we so carefully painted black earlier, obviously can remain black, or if you'd like, you can do them in brown. I'm just gonna leave them in black. So I will paint this portion, and then probably look to do maybe the pistol holster. And then once we've got his, all that done, we'll come back and do his face. I am still holding off on this stream of biomass up here until we get the arm attached and I can glue this to something so that it doesn't flop around so much, because it just really wants to fall off at this point. But we'll paint that and go from there. Next step is going to be a little bit of Mornfang brown on the little utility pouches here on the sides, as well as the gun holster, which I guess didn't do this guy very much good, but you know, this holster here we'll do in this Mornfang brown, and then I'm probably gonna put a little retributor armor on the edge there that I missed before, but I'm not gonna film that step because we're already well into this video and I want to get to some edge highlighting as well. So yeah, so there you go. So a little bit of Mornfang brown here. I also, you'll probably notice, glued a couple extra skulls on the base just for fun, and I will do those in a separate step as well. Just that's going to be a little bit of probably Rakarth flesh on the base, Agrax Earthshade, Screaming Skull, etc. Do the skulls however, whatever your preference is, but I threw a couple extra ones on there, including this one in the center here is filling up that little divot that ends up being in these bases a lot of times. So a couple skulls, and then we'll put some grass later after the turf is down. But for now, we'll finish up those pouches. Our next step is to now give this guy a little bit of skin so we can then have it peeled right back off. So that is going to be on his arm, and we're going to be putting a lot of reds and whites, but you know, for now I'm just going to paint most of the arm in the Bugman's Glow is the flesh tone I'm using. So gotta get in here, get most of the arm. Also, we're going to go as best we can to not hit what we've already painted and get into his neck, and then this part of his arm over here. Lay a little more fine point on my brush if I can get it, but painting his arm over here as well. And what I didn't notice, but I did check the box art, as you should do, you know, occasionally, is this arm to me looked like it was, or this hand that is, looked like it was just a normal hand, but it's actually when you look at the box art, and hopefully as I go along here, this is more flesh that has been ripped off. So it's actually like a skeleton hand holding on to this chain here. So I'm going to paint that, and I'm probably going to do just a few paints all at once on the next step, because there's so many tiny little things that I don't want to do, you know, a very quick step. So we're going to do something like pink horror on, or I can't remember the pink color, but we're going to do, I'll explain it. The icon here, what's it called? I don't remember what it's called. Anyways, we're gonna do this piece, these pieces here, again, the one on the back, and these, and I can't for the life of me remember what they're called at the moment. We're also gonna go, you know, after we paint his head here, he's got some white hair bear and he's got a beard. We'll paint that white. So we're gonna do all those steps in the next jump, just so I can shorten this up, because I think we're already to like almost 30 minutes on this video, and I haven't even started doing the awesome effects that I've been wanting to do the entire time. So for now, we paint skin. So the color in use now is Rakarth Flesh, and that is for the bones. As you can see, I've already gotten started here, and the reason that you can see that is in my last take, I put my thumb entirely in front of the entire shot. So I'm just kind of going over these again, showing you hit them very lightly as if you're just edge highlighting them. And then the scrolls of the purity seals over here, as well as on the back, would also be done in Rakarth Flesh. The final piece over here as well in the fingers over here. And the reason that I'm edge highlighting these and not just slapping on a bunch of paint is that I want the flesh to still be in between. And it's okay if it darkens down later with the Reikland Flesh Shade, but I want a little bit of material still in between here that isn't white. So we will finish that step, and then I'm going to put a little bit of Screamer Pink on the purity seals, and then we should be ready to finally go ahead and do an overall wash of Reikland Flesh Shade on the metal portions and the skin portions, and a little bit of the Agrax Earthshade on the robes and the tabards. And probably what we'll do at that point is come back and put, yeah, you know what, maybe I'll do Rakarth Flesh for the beard and the hair, but I'm going to do the beard and the hair, and then I will do the Screamer Pink, and then we'll do those in Nuln Oil. So a couple more steps here, and then we'll be finally on to the highlighting, which is going to really make this model look even better than it already does. All right, let's get to it. So a little bit of Screamer Pink on the purity seals, and that should hopefully be the last of the base coats required on this guy. Whatever he is, I don't even know. Somebody tell me what it is in the comments, because I had never actually seen him before. I imagine some sort of, I don't know. Who knows? You let me know. Anyways, so after the purity seal here dries, we'll go back and I'm going to do all the washes, or all the shades that is, in one step. And that's going to be on the hair. It's going to be Nuln Oil, and same thing on the purity seals. On the scrolls here and the bags and the cloak, it will be Agrax Earthshade. And then for the flesh and the metal chest piece here, it's going to be, turn it up so you can see it, metal and the flesh, it will be a Reikland Flesh Shade. So I'm going to do all of those, let them dry, and gosh, and then look forward to doing the rest. So the you can see, no you can't, now you can see it. Gold here with Reikland Flesh Shade, as is the flesh. I didn't go all the way up because I'm going to add more paint and transitions later. The robes and scrolls and leather, including the, I don't know if you saw this earlier, the brown belt. I just made it brown rather than trying to come back and make it black because it's kind of mostly hidden anyway. But that belt, all that is done with Agrax Earthshade. And then the hair, which is now quite gray, was dulled down by some Nuln Oil. Purity seals also done in Nuln Oil. Oops, could you see that? Could you? Could you? No, you can't. Yeah, you know what it is. So that is that, and I'm going to go and get a little bit of this out of here, actually. Seemed like a bit much. Maybe add a little bit back in. There, that works. So I think finally I've now got to a stage where I can let this dry, and then we can move on with the fun stage of highlighting, which I've now said a bunch of times, but it's finally going to be a thing. So I think what I'm going to try to do first is I'm trying to do, let me let this dry. Let me gather my thoughts, because I'm about to ramble, and I could feel it coming. And while I can't stop it, I can at least save you from it, and I'll just, ramble to myself. All right. So with the shade now dry, I'm going to begin highlighting with Warpstone Glow on all of the green, the blade, the orb, the armor, and whatnot. Now for the blades, this is the fun part here. So you have to pick out, there's two edges of this blade, and what we want to do is we want to kind of start, maybe if we were to say this half and this half will go in opposite directions. So from this line here, I want to start just slightly above this, so maybe like right here. We will go and we're going to do all of the like the sharpened edge of this spear, and you can mix in something like Lamia Media. You can use whatever your preference is as far as like thinning down goes. I just use water and lots of coats. But what you want to do is you want to have a nice transition from the dark Caliban green into the Warpstone Glow. Now, if you feel like you went too far, or if the transition has too much of an edge, you can try your hand at a little bit of wet blending, which I am not severely great at, but you go back and you get some of the color like Caliban green here, and you go into the what do you call it, the Warpstone Glow, and you start, you know, mixing the two where they meet. Maybe go back, get a little bit of Warpstone Glow again, come back here, and you just want to try to create almost like you're, instead of blending on the palette, you're blending it on the model itself. This is tricky, takes a long time to learn, and I don't know if that's true or not. It's just, you know, I'll say it so that if I mess up, it covers my bases. But anyways, so I'm going to go back and do that. Again, you can just use a thinned down version of the Warpstone Glow, and you want to get a nice, I guess a nice turn. And then where this meets, I'm going to go slightly past it on this end and pull back in the opposite direction, and go up to the center here. So that will be the lighter portion of this half of the staff, and the darker portion will be this front portion. Now, again, on the second half, I'm going to start here, since this is the part I've defined as the brighter portion, like the center of it, and go maybe about halfway down here, and pull from the opposite, the sharpened side, and again slightly overlapping the portion we just painted, so that there's a decent transition between the two. That'll look, I'll come back and show you when it's done. Now, the other thing we're going to do, and we're going to do that type of treatment on both sides, obviously, of the spear, and the lower blade. For the orbs, what I like to do is I'm going to go right through the center, just paint that whole section. But then when I come up to the edges where the orb is tucked in, I don't go quite all the way in. And again, this is a thin version because I don't want to be too thick on the first run through. I'm going to do a couple coats of it, but leaving that portion darker and just highlighting the rest of the orb is what I like to do. Now, put a little bit here in case you didn't earlier, or rather, this icon we painted in Caliban green. Now we're going to lighten it up with the Warpstone Glow. Make sure to touch up as needed with black, because, you know, this is a tiny little piece and you might hit it like I just did. So the whole piece gets covered in the Warpstone Glow. And then finally, I'm going to use a different piece. I'm going to use the shoulder piece that's not yet glued on to add a little bit of Warpstone Glow as an edge highlight here. So we're not using a blending, we're using more of a hard edge. So I'll use the side of my brush after I've gotten a nice clean tip on it, and just kind of drag it at an angle to highlight just the hard edges of it. Same thing going down this way, and so we can get a nice defined line of where the armor makes an abrupt change of angle. Now, for the lines that are in between here, I'm going to do my best to trace them, and I don't want to get anything too far away from the line itself. But if you do, you can try to miss towards the inside, if that makes sense, like I just did right there. Like I dipped the brush in, because it'll be a lot easier. I can just go back with some black or some Nuln Oil to darken that line back up. Whereas the armor out here, if I make too many mistakes on the outside of it, you know, I got to use a Caliban green and Nuln Oil, and trying to make it match the initial shade without just changing it around too much might be more difficult. So if you're gonna miss into that line, let's see, I can actually grab a little bit of Nuln Oil real quick, or not Nuln Oil. This is a Abaddon Black. And just trace in that line again, and there you go. It's all cleaned up. So I will go do this for all of the green armor and all the staff portions and all of the orbs, which will probably take me a little bit, but luckily for you, it'll be done in a second. There we go. Got some warpstone glow working, making the model look very, very cool in my mind. Even, you know, brightening it up with a little bit of moot green will make it even better. But the first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to brighten the silver portions up. Now, I know that I said I wasn't planning on dry brushing this model, but that was like 30 minutes ago at this point, and I can't even, you know, keep a sentence going for more than 15 seconds without changing my mind. So I'm going to be dry brushing Stormhost Silver very lightly over the metal portions of the model. Just like that. That's all it really needs. Just a light brush and done, just like this. So with this, I will be able to then attach, hopefully put the arm on and all that, and start working on the base that is required for all this coming up here. So I'm pretty sure that's what it's called in the codex, but I haven't got my hands on it yet. But I'm pretty sure it's like, you know, Illuminor Szeras creates that comes off. Anyways, point is, I am now going against what I said I was going to do, and I'm going to be dry brushing here. And when I am done with that, I will then be able to, hopefully, like I said, affix the arm and go forward from there. You may also notice, you may or may not, I'll allow it though, the head here, I've changed the color a little bit. I put white on the top portion, the face, or rather the teeth and the jaw. Everything else is still the same, but I did add a little bit of white up top just because I thought it would stand out and look pretty good. So dry brushing now, and then we will work on getting the other arm on and go from there. So you learn something about yourself when you build a model like this. For instance, I didn't realize I could get so frustrated with plastic. I 100% will admit that it is likely all of my issue, but I think the next time, if ever I build something, you know, I'm gonna go through the sprue and look at all the pieces and decide whether or not sub-assemblies are even worth it. So basically, here's what happened is, you'll note he now has an arm, and that arm has a hose, and there's another arm over here that is got an extra long pointy finger into here, as well as this shoulder piece. Now the shoulder piece, I mean, that was just no problems whatsoever, just went right on. However, this arm, after test fitting it about 1,742 times, I decided to actually go to glue it in place, and it no longer wanted to glue into place. It wouldn't line up over here, which is where the joint is, being concealed by this inconspicuous green stuff, which will now act as just kind of a, I don't know, decorative piece. And then the arm, or the, so then once that was in, I had to cut a piece off of the piece of biomass that was coming up to glue it together, because there was there's no anchor point that I noticed. Then we got this arm needed to come all the way over here, and I'm pretty sure that the joint in the mass that's coming up wasn't done correct. Again, this is all alignment issues that are on my half. So, and then finally, this piece up here kind of did the same thing that the arm did and no longer wanted to line up. So I ended up cutting off a piece. You know, it's got a cool angle. He's like looking down in the direction of the arm where it's going. and it's stabbing into it. But there was also a large piece that originally came off here, and this arm was supposed to be sitting up higher or something. I have no idea. But end of the day, looks pretty good. So, you know, I'm not going to I'm going to move on with my painting and be fine with it, because I do think that in the end it's just going to it's all going to look good, and I'm fine with that. So I'm going to use now Liberator Gold to edge highlight the gold pieces, and be as careful as I can at this point, because now that there's so many tiny little pieces in place, I don't know if I'd be able to really go back and undo anything that I messed up. So point is, I gotta be perfect from here on out, so expect lots more you know, lots more problems. So anyways, let me get into here just to show you a couple. Like I said, just doing this, every single one of these tops and down the sides, you know, all that stuff, just to give a nice edge highlight to all that, and then we will go on to something else. We are looking close to complete, but trust me, I don't know if we're anywhere near it. But that said, let's go and use a little bit of the Uriel yellow. Something, you know what, first let me back up a step. Something I neglected to mention when I was talking about what to highlight with the moot green is an edge highlight that goes along the outer edges, as well as on the raised portions of the blade, both top and bottom, just to define it a little bit better. I think the blending could have gone a little bit better, but it was tough anyway. Then I also managed to knock this piece off right where it meets the hand. It glued back together okay, but you know, just to add to the fun of it. I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but yeah, just this entire thing like begs for sub-assemblies in my mind, because there's so many different details to get to. But it being as delicate as it is, and me being as clumsy as I am apparently, just makes that really difficult. Now, I'm going to go now and do a little bit of the Uriel yellow. I'm going to add just a dot for the eye like that, and that's all it's going to be. You may not even see it. Well, anyways, trust me, it's there. But so a dot for the eye, and then on the brightest portions, so you see where the moot green is, and then it blends into this warpstone glow. I don't want it to go into the warpstone glow necessarily. I just kind of want to stay out here and use less paint than that. Really, really light highlight that just goes along the edge like that. Just on the sharpest edges here and the backside here, like that. If you're feeling brave, you can come down in the middle. Let me actually watch this. I'll show you on one of my completed lich guard. There we go. So this is what the effect looks like when you go down the blade a little bit. There you go. As you notice, this one doesn't have the same kind of lines inside the weapon as this does. This got some moot green inside the actual weapon itself, whereas this one is just, I don't know, they're different weapons. So anyways, that is that guy. But for now, I'm going to go and finish up the Uriel yellow highlights. And then I did add some Reikland flesh shade to the rest of the flesh here. And I think the next portion, we're getting pretty close to done with the Illuminor portion of the Illuminor Szeras model. Now, what's got to be finished is the base, obviously. I'm going to make quick work I can. I might just do a bunch of highlighting and finishing of this guy and then tell you what I did versus showing every single step, because some of it's going to be like add dot to the eye, dot, and I don't want to do an entire section on that. So what I might do is just try to, you know, get a bunch done and then show you what I did and kind of explain how I did it. So yeah, we, you know what, maybe we're closer than I thought to completing this. So let me get started on the yellow. So for the biomass that is streaming up, I've been doing or at least trying to do a gradient of Reikland flesh shade, and then I came and did the same Reikland again down about halfway, and then about a quarter of the way, and then starting right about here, I did Carrollsberg, or how do you pronounce this? Carrollberg Crimson. And now this is the final coat of Carrollberg Crimson I'm going to do just to make it really, really dark. And the idea is, I don't know what the idea is, but the box art looks like this, where it gets progressively darker as it comes up. And I think it looks kind of cool. Now the hard part is getting in here and trying to hit, and this is my gripe and my want of sub-assemblies, but as we discussed, just ain't gonna happen, and we're pretty close to the end here, so I just gotta let it go, you know. The sub-assemblies, you know, maybe next time, we'll see. All right, anyways, so doing the last coat of the Carrollberg Crimson. So now the top part here will be really, really dark, and then it'll be lighter at the base. And then next I'm gonna go and take my brush, wash it off, leave it slightly wet, and then starting down here, even though I didn't paint anything here, I'm just gonna push up this way to make sure that most of it goes towards the top, and that's just a way that that's what the bottom of the base looks like. By the way, magnetic base, just 3 little magnets on some plastic card. Anyways, so yeah, I do that to push it up with a little bit of water to make sure that I didn't get too carried away at the bottom here. So while it looks very wet, it's because it is, but it's wet with water, not with paint. So keep making sure that all that stays up. All right, moving on to the skin portions. I'm going to be applying Cadian Flesh Tone to the previously darkened Bugman's Glow, and that's going to be on places like his arm down here, reaching out for someone to save him, which will not come. Of course, you know, that who hasn't been there, being deconstructed by a gigantic robotic walking sentient being. Did I miss all of that because of my angle? Anyways, also we will paint the head portions, down the nose, under the eyes. Doing flesh on a face is really hard. You want to basically try and paint everything that is not in a recess, and then we're adding this layer, and then we will go and highlight really, really, really sparingly on the really sharp points, like the nose. Can I get closer? Yeah, like the nose and maybe the top lip. But for now, just try to run it real lightly across the bottom lip, and see if we can get the camera to focus better. Try to get this nose, cheek, etc. I'll come back and show you, because this is hard. Oh, did I get it all? Did I get it all? I may have gotten it all. We'll see. We'll see once it dries, because it's also going to dry slightly later than it is right now. And then what I'm also going to do, because this is horrifying, is instead of just like letting it be a hard transfer, I'm going to pick some of these that are going up and maybe like into here slightly. I'm not completely covering it. I'm just almost like I'm adding a highlight to make it look as if, you know, it's him that's being pulled out, but just blending the two paints together to make it look even more so, instead of just, you know, what's this random mass of red goo that he's pulling out. So just a little bit of dabs here and there, used sparingly like that. So I will continue that and finish that up. Don't forget his other arm on this side, and I think that's it. Well, you can hit the back of his arm as well. I don't know if you can see that here. Yep, we can. All right, so back of that, his other arm, back of the balding head, of course, and the highlight to that, which I probably, like I said, I've used it very sparingly, but it'll be Kislev flesh. Will just go down maybe on the brow tops and the nose, and that'll be it. All right, so there you have the Cadian Flesh Tone, and I actually did the Kislev flesh at the same time. I took a dry brush and actually did the light dry brushing up and down of the biomass that's coming out of him, because I wanted a little bit of that color up here. I didn't want it to just be pure red, and then it's really, really lightly dry brushed on here, just on the very edges. So I did that. And then the eye socket I did in Ulthuan Gray, however you want to pronounce it, because I'm going to pronounce it wrong. But you want to be really careful. Make sure you don't have a lot of paint. You don't want to fill the entire socket with just a giant glob of white. So I added some, tapped it in, watered down within the socket. That actually kind of gives a highlight in the back of the socket. Now I'm going to zoom in because I did end up drawing pupils onto him, which when you're zoomed in looks terrible because you could see it's at an angle. But the way I did these is actually, I have this ultra fine brush. Can I fix this? Oh man, this is dangerous. I'm using the camera to zoom in. I fix it? It looks less like a cat eye, I guess. Let me try to fix the other one. This is a whole new territory of zooming in and trying to do things at the same time. Anyway, this brush is an extremely fine point brush. Oh no, didn't get it that time. Ah, all right. Oh, bane of my existence. Okay, so let me zoom back out and show you what just happened. So there we go. He looks horrified that he's being taken apart. Good for him. Now I look horrified because where'd the weapon go? This has happened. This is the third time, not the fourth time. So when this happens, and like it did for me, it sucks. But it also gives you the opportunity to paint it. So hey, it broke off. You may as well paint all of it, flip it over, paint all of it so that you can get all to it easy, and then glue the thing on and never touch the model again. So I'm going to glue that on for the fourth time, or third time, I don't know, I lost count. Maybe I won't, maybe I'll finish the model and then glue it on, who knows. Moving right along. So the next step is to do some, I'm going to use a shabby bone and I'm going to go across the fingers here and here, just to highlight those, and then I'm going to use a little bit of Screaming Skull as well in there and there, maybe a little bit of Screaming Skull across the teeth. His robes, I will also do the Ushabti Bone and Screaming Skull, but probably in a dry brush just to save some time. And you know, the main thing everyone wants to see anyway, or probably the focus that everyone's going to have, is the larger model, not the guy on the ground. And even then, the guy on the ground, you're kind of focusing just on the front. So you know, if the backs are done quickly, who minds? And then also these couple of skulls here, and then once all that is done, I will be putting on Astro Granite and letting that dry, or starting to let it dry, while I finish up other highlights of the things like the purity seals, this black here, the black on the weapon, the black on the boots, etc. So let me go and do those pieces right there. I'm probably just going to glue that piece back on, but you know. This has been a fun second video. Next up, I'm going to apply Pink Horror to the purity seals, just to the outer edge, and kind of pressing down towards the skull, just like that, to get, you know, leave the color that's in the recess there. There we go. And there's also the one on the back. Same process here, obviously. The next part I'm going to do is I will be adding little highlights to this, what is this, a hose? I believe it's a hose. Some sort of mask or respirator in here. Just basically like a dot and a dot. And it's super exciting, so I won't show you all those. Next part I'm going to do is I'm then also going to apply Astro Granite to the texture of the base, and the reason I'm doing that is because at this point most everything on the guy down here on the ground should be done, so I can allow that to start drying up while I finish up things like the highlights that are on the weapon and gosh, I think that's I'll do some white scar up on the helm. But other than that, like it's basically pretty close to done. I think I'm on the home stretch now. When just a couple minutes ago I was thinking this is going to take forever, but actually when you only have to paint little dots, it goes much quicker. Something I forgot to mention earlier was the what is it? The scrolls here, the parchment, is actually done in the same scheme as the robes and everything. It's just a Shabby Bone and Screaming Skull over it. I'm going to go back later with that little fine pen, which I said I was going to show and I never did. This is the pen right here. You done? Okay. Okay, now you're done. This is the pen, a Faber, extra small. Just allows me to get a really clean line when I don't feel like thinning down my paints, just to drag them barely across. But moving right along, almost done here. And I know that some of you may notice I'm now using a thing to hold my model, which is basically just PVC from Home Depot. And some of you might think, well, hey, that's handy. Why wasn't he using that before? Might have saved him some trouble. Might have saved him a couple times of dropping it, you know? And to those people, I say, the next step that I'm going to use is Dark Reaper. And the Dark Reaper is going to go here on the edges of the blade, the weapon, as well as in between each of these little lines here. And this one is an easy cleanup. If you make too wide of a line, you can simply just go back with Abaddon Black. The second part of this is I'm going to be adding some white scar as a highlight to the helmet. If I can, just be very much on the edge. I'll try to make a little circle around this. I don't know if I did or not. I'll have to look at it later. Most of the camera is kind of washed out here, but trust me, I am highlighting it and it looks amazing. And I'm not going to give you any proof. You just have to take my word for it. No, I'm kidding. I'll totally show you, and I'll, move along. Final highlights. I think that's, so the Dark Reaper, the white scar, and I thought there was one more that I'm now forgetting. Do you see it? I don't see it. You probably see one of them, but I'm not going to do it because I can't think of what it is. Anyways, so I guess that's most of the model basically done. You know what? You know why I wasn't using a handle? Because this is what it looks like when I'm trying to paint. I can't put the thing down further. Anyways. So yeah, I'm going to go through Dark Reaper here, a little bit of white scar here. Oh, I'm sorry. It was the, it must be late. It's always late. I'm going to go and attempt to do tiny little hairs, just pulling out. That's not tiny at all. But if I go back with my thumb and drag it across, all of a sudden it dies down. But I'm going to try to go and give him a little bit of, not variation, but just some hairline, other than just a massive gray chunk. I want to make it look more like hair. So maybe a little bit of white scar, maybe a little bit of Celestia Gray, Elthawon Gray, going back and just adding in some extra color into his beard and his hair back here. And then I think that's it, other than dry brushing the base, dry brushing this piece. I'll figure that one out later. It is late, but anyways, so that's the next step, and now I'm going to proceed and do all of those. So there was one final color in two sections that I want to be able to do, and that is the leather of the pouch that's on the one side, and then the pouch that is here, his gun holster. And this is just going to be an edge highlight on the sharpest edges, like this. And the color is Scrag Brown, or any brown really that is lighter than the Mornfang Brown plus shade that we applied earlier. You want to make sure it's kind of in the same color tint family, but overall, we're just doing something like, oh my gosh, was this light blocking it the whole time? Well, amazing. Here's what we'll do. We'll zoom in. And so you can see the little highlights there. Something I don't normally do, but I'm going to attempt to do on this model is just, go in here and make a real fine, thin line like this. Maybe one over here. One kind of down this way. And all we're doing here is just trying to simulate like scratches in the leather. I don't know if it'll turn out okay or if it's just going to look messy, but I am going to do a little bit of that. Second thing, the rebar that is sticking out, I already did a couple of them over here. So you can you can use that Scrag Brown and water it way down so it's really runny. And then you can paint it onto your metal that you want it to be rusted, and voila, you have a slightly orange tint of a rust effect. The final step of this is going to be finishing this base up. And the base, unfortunately, while I do like the cement, what I don't like is that it is a very different color than the basing material. I think what I'm going to do, this just looks too bright and clean right now as opposed to this. I need to dry brush something over this, and then I'm going to dry brush something over this, and then I might do a little bit of shading, and then paint the outer rim and call it done. So there we have it, the finished product. My take on the Illuminor Szeras model. I'm pretty happy overall with how the look came out. The final base paint was a little bit of dry brushing of Dawnstone over the cement portions, and then Prague City White dry brushed again over the whole terrain, including those cement pieces, just to tie it in a little bit. This was definitely a learning experience for me as far as, one, just building the model, a little bit of brush control, a little bit of trying some new things, but then also, you know, putting this thing together was a lot more complicated than other models that I've done. A lot of the stuff that I've done are things like Space Marines, you know, and the other Necrons, which are not nearly as difficult to put together. But that isn't to say it wasn't fun. Definitely fun, definitely rewarding, and I'm looking forward to you know, doing more things like this. Eventually, I hope to have a little more skill, but you know, I want to keep the presentations about the same. The second learning thing here is, yeah, how I present what I'm doing, those deep breaths, the sniffing on cameras, all that fun stuff that, you know, happens in the first 5-10 videos you make. So the rambling will probably never stop, which is why I have those quick cut videos, which just show, you know, paint, here it is, real simple. And even those might get adjusted a little bit in the future, just so they're a little more, you know, cut down and even shorter. So if you made it this far, once again, thank you very much. Don't forget to like and subscribe and do all the YouTube things that are the normal YouTube things to be done. I hope to be putting out videos once a week. If they're all like the Illuminor Szeras here, then it's going to be a little bit further out. But you know, once we get back to some more simple models, I definitely will be able to crank those out and make sure there's enough content, at least once a week, something like that, if not more. So once again, my name is Joe. Thanks for coming by, and we'll see you on the next one.